So if you're packing your bags to come to Australia, great. Now you might also be thinking, what sort of documents should I pack in my bags in order to bring them to Australia? So in this video, we are going to discuss what sort of documents that you should bring when you're coming to Australia as an international student. So without wasting time, let's go straight to the topic. Now, first document is quite obvious, but we have to tell that you must bring your passport. Now, we don't really need to explain much why you should bring your passport when coming to Australia for your studies, but obviously it's very, very important document. Jokes apart, one very important thing to remember is that you must have at least 6 months of validity on your passport. So which means that your passport should not be expiring within next 6 months. If it is, you probably will need to get a new passport before arriving in Australia. It's a condition actually for most of the countries that you must have at least 6 months of validity of your passport before arriving. So please make sure that you check the expiry date on your passport, that it must be more than 6 months when you're arriving in Australia. The next one is airline tickets. You must have a printed copies of your airline tickets as well. Again, quite an obvious document, but we need to mention that as well. Of course, if you're planning to study in Australia and you are arriving in Australia, you must have a student visa. There are different type of visas available, but whatever type of visa you have, make sure you have a copy of that as well. Now, the next one is your academic transcripts. So any qualifications you have completed in your country, it's a good idea to bring those documents in Australia as well. You'll probably need it few times while you are studying here, especially if you are going to apply for further visas as well. So ideally you should bring your year 10, year 12. If you have completed your degrees like bachelor's or master's, you need to bring all those documents as well. And it's a good idea that you have a qualification certificate and any mark sheets that you have along with those qualifications as well. So any document that tells about your marks in those qualifications, you should bring them as well. Then in regards to your studies in Australia, you should bring COE or ECOE, which is known as confirmation of enrollment. This is a document that is given to you by your university or institute when you're applying for this course. So it is a confirmation that you have been enrolled into this specific course at this specific university or institution. So make sure you have a copy of your ECOE or COE. And the next one is your IELTS or PTE certificate. So some students who are going to study in Australia will require to complete an English test. It could be IELTS, PTE, or could be some other English test. Whatever test you have completed, make sure that you have a valid certificate of that as well. And make sure to bring that certificate along with you. Obviously, not every student will need to complete this test. So if you don't need to complete this test, obviously you don't need to bring this document. The next one is the receipts of any payments you have made. For example, you might have paid your tuition fee, or your airfares, or you might have paid overseas student health cover, or you might have already paid a fee for your accommodation. So make sure you get the receipts of all these documents, and it's a good idea to bring along those receipts as well. And obviously you might need to exchange some currency as well. So if you are bringing some Australian dollars with you, so make sure you get a receipt from a business where you are exchanging that currency. Very important that you keep a receipt of that currency exchange. The next very important document is driving license. As an international student, you are regarded as a temporary resident, which means you can drive on your overseas license in Australia while it's current and valid. Please keep in mind that some states and territories may have their own regulations in regards to how long you can drive in Australia on an overseas license. So we suggest that you check the details on the state or territory you will be driving your car in. So it's very important that you bring your driving license along with you when you're coming to Australia. While some students from certain countries can easily transfer their overseas license to Australian license, but students from some countries will need to undertake tests in order to get an Australian license. But bringing your overseas driving license is definitely a must. The next document you should bring in is any medical records or prescriptions that you have. So if you're carrying any medicine, you must bring a prescription for that, no doubt. But there are some other prescriptions you might be carrying for your glasses or some other medical records that you need to bring. So please bring those medical documents or medical records with you as well, especially if you have some specific health conditions. But if you're carrying some medicines along with you when traveling to Australia, it's always a good idea to bring those prescriptions as well. The next one is work-related certificates. If you're planning to work in Australia, it is always a good idea to bring along your work certificates as well. So it could be a reference letter from your employer from your home country, or could be a work experience certificate it's good idea to bring along those work related documents as well. And the next one is any other certificates. So if you have completed any short course, for example, you have completed an IT course, or you have completed any trades course and you have completed that course, it's good idea to bring along those certificates as well. For example, you have done a barista course in your home country, might be good idea to bring along that certificate as well. So the next few documents are specifically related to COVID situation. So in order to arrive in Australia, you will need to bring these documents as well, especially during these COVID times. So what are these documents? First one is vaccine certificate. So if you're a temporary visa holder or if you're a student visa holder, you must have a vaccine certificate that proves that you have got a double dose of a TGA approved vaccine. So you must carry that vaccine certificate. Number 2 is a report of your PCR test. So within 72 hours of your flight time, you will need to take a PCR test. And this test will need to turn negative before you take your flight. So in order to do that, you must have a report of your PCR test. The next one is the declaration form. So at the moment, this form is known as Australian Travel Declaration. Obviously, in the future, they might name it something different. But in order to come to Australia, you will be required to complete these declaration form. We actually got a video on how to complete Australian Travel Declaration. So if you would like to watch that, we'll put the link in the description below. And last but not the least, if you're coming to specific state or territory, they may require you to have a border permit. So the next document is the border permits, which is another entry form when you're arriving in that state or territory. It will depend upon which state or territory you're arriving in. They may have these border permits or they may not have these border permits. So for example, currently if you're arriving in Victoria, you will need to have a COVID-19 border permit from Victorian government's website. Please make sure that you have those documents. So these last few documents we mentioned are specific related to COVID-19 situation. In the past, they were not required, obviously because of the current situation. We need to bring along those documents as well. Now a quick tip before we finish this video, it's ideal that you should have at least a couple of copies of all these documents, and it's a good idea to bring along these documents in your carry bag or in your handbag. Or if you're bringing a laptop bag, then you can put those documents in that laptop bag as well. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them in the comment section below as well. I will try to answer as many as we can. So hope you find this information useful. If you do, please make sure to like, share and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.